Welcome back with another banger. It's the React Files. Hope you having a good night. Let's get straight to it.
Check it out. Shapeshifter, right? That's what we're thinking. Okay, let's watch it again. This has been sent to me like 20 times for me to, analyze it to see what I think. Keep watching. Pay attention. Right there. That's the one that kind of gets me right there. You can see me snapping the screenshots while I'm watching this, trying to catch each frame, and that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at each frame on when it happens, and we're going to see what's going on. So first off, this is what we have. And I have to rule out every possibility. Is this a movie? I don't know, and I haven't seen it if it is, although I'm sure the comments will say it with no information or no links to back it up. If you do have that information, please back it up. Don't say it, because if you say it and you can't back it up, it looks pathetic. So let's get started. We see this first frame right here. You can see me snapping these frames, and I'm just going to show you through each one, because we're going to look at it. This is a real thing. For me, it is. This is real. I'm not saying this video, I'm saying that this phenomena is very real, I think, considering personal things I've seen. Now, this video is more than likely AI. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that, but it might not be. So let's check it out. See this? Okay, now we see this. I've tried to lighten it up and clear it up, and look, usually when I do that, now I will say this, if it's artificial intelligence, it'll kind of gleam out, it'll fade out. I could not get the skull, the image to fade out whatsoever. I mean, it stayed solid, so that could have some authenticity to it. So let's check this next frame. Okay, then you can see this here, and actually I got those two frames crossed up, and the other one goes after this one. So let's watch this one. I'm not going to even go back try to correct the video. We'll just go back. All right, so this is actually the second frame. Okay, so check that out. Let's go back. This is third frame. Now, right before she turns all the way around, this is what happens. This guy looks terrified. I don't have him on this image, but this is what ends up happening. That's the same person right there. Now, is this an AI generated? Is it AI generated content where this guy just looks like that the whole time and they've added everything else to me? Who knows? I'll let you leave the comments. You tell me. You tell me what's going on. Is this a shapeshifter?
The question that everybody's asking. I think it's AI. As soon as she turns, you see some guy with a suit and tie just coming out of nowhere. So definitely AI, but it's crazy how real it looks.
This doesn't explain that, and investigators are getting mocked for speaking out about it. Drill cores like these have been found all around ancient Egypt, which was the leftover piece that would be thrown away by Egyptian builders after a hole was drilled into granite. Now, modern explanations use a bow drill made from a copper tube to demonstrate how these holes were drilled. And they work. Myth busted. We can move on, right? Not even close. First of all, yes, there are several hieroglyphs that supposedly demonstrate the use of these alleged drills, typically using them on tables, not granite slabs. Yet, not a single copper tube drill artifact has ever been recovered from Egypt, like ever. They made these holes all the time. Shouldn't these copper tube drills kind of be everywhere? Counter argument is that copper was so valuable that they likely smelted it down for other uses. Every single last one of them. How convenient. But that's nothing compared to the machining marks found on this drill core. The infamous Petrie's core number 7, found by Sir Flinders Petrie. And of course, the common Google debunker can search this up and find countless sources that irrefutably debunk this myth. But for those that can think for themselves, a little digging shows that something just doesn't make sense about this. Analyzing the core and wrapping a string of cotton around the grooves showed the drill marks produced a continuous spiral down the entire core, which the bow drill method doesn't do, but rather horizontal lines that look nothing like the authentic Egyptian cores. It doesn't end there. Analysis confirmed by fringe theorists like aerospace engineer Christopher Dunn, who worked with machining tools his entire life, suggested that after studying the spacing of the drill marks on this core, that the penetration rate of whatever method the ancient Egyptian used to drill this core must have been 500 times greater than our diamond drill drills today. His words, his conclusion. He obviously must be crazy. Now, that doesn't mean the drilling method was faster back then than it is today. It just means that, according to his calculations, these ancient drills had a greater vertical penetration for every rotation of the drill than today's technology. This clearly evil fringe analysis explains how the grooves on the drill core indicate a 0.1 inch of vertical penetration for every rotation of the drill head, whereas modern diamond drills with a 900 RPM achieve about 0.0002 inches of penetration per rotation, 500 times less than the ancient method. It could have very well been, and probably was, slower with whatever drilling technique they were using back then, but this level of penetration is mathematically not possible with today's diamond drills, and clearly not with the bow drill. Now listen, I'm not saying they used lasers or advanced high-tech drills or anything like that. I'm also not fully dismissing it, but it seems so obvious to me and several other questioners that something was used here that they're just refusing to even acknowledge. Just like the scoop marks they found around the unfinished mega obelisk at Aswan, which looks like they literally scooped granite directly out of the quarry. The explanation? Pounding stones, banging other rocks against it, for which they haven't been able to replicate but still stand by. Or maybe the ancients had some sort of forgotten method to soften hard stone, making it malleable and easy to work with that we're just unaware of. Okay, that's enough for now, because this is a rabbit hole that I don't think anyone's ready for.
So one night, this English backpacker goes hiking. He's in Australia in the outback, and it's nighttime, and he really wants to go climbing. So he starts climbing up the wall of this bluff. And so he climbs up, and when he's a ways up there, suddenly, boom, he loses his footing and he starts to tumble down the bluff. And bam, he hits his head, and then bam, he hits his head again, and then finally he slams into the ground. And then, as if that isn't bad enough, a pack of wild, hungry dogs approach him, and they... Actually, I'm not ready to talk about this guy yet. We'll get back to him. I actually want to talk about this woman, who we'll call Alice, because that's her real name. And Alice is about to experience the worst night of her life, because her baby is about to get eaten. So one night, she's on a camping trip with her family, her husband and her 3 kids. And they're at a popular camping spot with a bunch of other families, and they got tents pitched, and they're all hanging out and making dinner. And then Alice's youngest daughter, a baby, she gets tired. And so Alice has to put her in a little crib inside the tent. And then she just goes back to making dinner. And then a little time passes, and suddenly they hear the baby cry. And Alice notices some movement in her tent. And then a dingo runs out of it. So Alice rushes over to check on the baby. But the baby is not in her crib. So then Alice yells, my God, a dingo has my baby!" She then runs out into the darkness, chasing after the dingo. But unfortunately, it's too late. The dingo is long gone. Now, Alice's husband is this guy, Michael. And Alice and Michael and the rest of the families, they start searching for the baby. And eventually, local police arrive. And this kicks off a huge manhunt. And soon, over 300 campers and other people are combing through the campgrounds, looking for this baby and the dingo that took it. And they form a human chain to cover as much ground as possible, but still, they find nothing. So sadly, Alice and Michael return home without their baby, and they are absolutely devastated. I mean, they don't know what to do. And then, about a week later, a random tourist just happens to be wandering around the area, and he stumbles across the baby's jumpsuit and diaper. But still, there's no sign of the missing baby. And unfortunately, at this point, it's clear that the baby is no longer alive. And so this story, it starts to blow up in the local media. Like a family's baby got eaten by a dingo? Like, that's wild. And people are just captivated. And so Alice and Michael, they think it would be helpful to do some interviews, because they want to warn other parents out there about how dangerous dingoes are. And this is where they screw up. Because every time they get on camera, people feel like they don't come across as 2 parents who just lost a kid. They feel like they come across as a bit cold and uncaring.
I just yelled. There wasn't time to go and tell people. I just yelled out, has anyone got a torch? Dingo's got my baby.
And so pretty quickly, the public starts to get suspicious. Like, they think Alice and Michael don't appear sad enough. And so the news media, they just run with this story, and they start to question Alice and Michael's version of events. Like, this isn't typical dingo behavior. Why would a wild dog steal a baby? And so to make all this worse, police, they start to develop a new, darker theory. That maybe this baby wasn't stolen by a dingo at all. That maybe this baby was unalived by her own mother. And as evidence for this, they start to point at the baby's jumpsuit that the tourist had found out by the campsite, because they had run tests on that jumpsuit and there was no dingo saliva on it. So then how could the baby have been in a dingo's mouth? And Alice, she explains this by saying, well, actually the baby was wearing a white cardigan over that jumpsuit. So that white cardigan, which is now missing, probably would have had dingo saliva on it. But unfortunately for her, that explanation isn't good enough for police. And prosecutors, they accuse her of lying about the white cardigan. And then boom, police arrest her. And they arrest Michael. And they charge her with the murder of her own baby, and they charge him with being an accessory to that murder. Now, police, they have no body, no murder weapon, and no witnesses. But what they do have is circumstantial evidence, including what they feel is a large amount of blood in the family's car. They, of course, believe this is the baby's blood. So anyway, they all go to trial. And in the trial, the prosecution argues that Alice unalived her own baby, possibly with scissors, and then hid the body in the family car. And that Michael later helped by trying to cover up the murder. And let me tell you, this trial blows the fuck up in Australia. It becomes the biggest media circus anyone has ever seen. Like, the tabloids are all over it. Every moment of it becomes newsworthy. And so sadly, after a month of hearing all the arguments, the jury deliberates and they find Alice and Michael both guilty. And Michael, he gets a suspended sentence because he had already spent time in jail waiting on the trial. But poor Alice, she actually gets sentenced to life in prison. Now this is where our English backpacker comes in. Because 3 years later, after Alice gets sentenced to life in prison, the English backpacker, he takes a trip to Australia. And he goes out to this popular camping spot. He goes for a climb at night. He loses his footing. He tumbles down the mountain. He dies. And some wild dogs approach him and they start to eat him. 8 days later, another hiker passing by, he finds the backpacker's body at the base of the bluff. So police come and investigate, and this happens to be in an area surrounded by dingo dens. And nearby, police find some of his clothing and his backpack. But then, a ranger finds a piece of clothing half buried. He pulls it out of the ground, and it happens to be a baby's white cardigan. The same white cardigan that prosecutors had accused Alice of lying about. And this corroborates her whole story. And then only 5 days after finding this cardigan, pow! The court orders Alice to be released from prison. And suddenly the government launches a new investigation into the baby's death, and ultimately they find that the baby's blood that they thought they found in the family car wasn't actually baby's blood. It was actually soundproofing spray that the car manufacturer sprays on when they built the car. And also, potentially, fruit juice. So the good news is, eventually, Alice and Michael are completely exonerated, and here's what they look like in real life. And then Hollywood goes on and makes a movie about the whole thing, starring Meryl Streep and that guy from Jurassic Park. And of course, the movie's got the famous line, "The dingo's got my baby!" which has then, unfortunately, gone on to become a pop culture punchline.
The dingo ate your baby!
So basically, this woman's baby was eaten alive, and now pop culture just makes jokes about it.
Wow, what a story. Shout outs to the real Ray Williams. They were innocent the whole time. A dingo really ate her baby. Whoa, it's such a sad story, and so many people make fun of it. This is my first time hearing about it.
Boeing officially now have a criminal record after they pled guilty today to a criminal fraud conspiracy charge, but their punishment was to pay a fine of $243 million, which is approximately 0.31% of their revenue in 2023 alone. And because of that, the question now being asked is Boeing too important and too big to be held fully accountable? You see, Boeing is one of the largest and most important companies in America. It is one of the world's 2 main manufacturers of large commercial jets. It ranks among the top 5 US defense contractors. It employs more than 170,000 people globally. And it makes vital contributions to the US economy by generating revenues of nearly $78 billion last year alone. So what happens when a company is so big that punishing them equates to punishing everyone else? Well, that is exactly what's being debated right now, because 5 years ago, 2 of Boeing's planes crashed just a couple of months apart 346 people. It emerged that corners had been cut during those aircraft's design and regulators had been lied to. Boeing agreed to a settlement of $2.5 million and to terms that would force them to improve their aircrafts and their safety. But now the DOJ found that in the years following that settlement, Boeing didn't adhere to those terms, leading us to this new fine of $243 million. Oh, and a criminal record. But the families of those lost in the crash are furious because they had wanted a much steeper penalty. And lawmakers in Washington are now expressing concerns that Boeing may be too important to be held fully accountable. So the question is, do you think that Boeing's punishment should be far greater? Or would that punishment just affect their employees and customers?
Well, when you look at 77 billion and you only take out 243 million, it doesn't seem like a lot. What sucks is that they got 170,000 employees that got to put food on the table for their families. So it sucks. It's a catch-22.
Interstellar was released 1 hour ago. This is mental. This is absolutely mental. So, I'm sure you all know the film Interstellar, and if you've seen this absolute banger of a film, you'll know what it's about and some of the places that they go to, right? Now, of course, they go to Miller's planet, this weird-ass planet which is covered in water, and time is very, very different here. Now, in the soundtrack, of course, you have the tick, which is basically representing a whole day on Earth passing. So, Matt, what are you getting at? Well, the movie was released back in 2014, right, which has now been 10 years since it was released. Now, we've been waiting a long time for this. The day has come, and this is wild. Now, it's been 84,704 hours since the movie actually released. And on Miller's planet, 60 minutes there is equal to 7 years on Earth. And of course, now it has been over 7 years since the movie was released. Now, there's some complex equation. If you want to read that, be my guest, but I'm not going to. But to the minute, on Miller's planet, it has been 1 hour and 35 minutes since this movie released.
You've been lied to your whole life and don't even know it.
This was the biggest realization I had when I moved to Asia. We were bred to be absolute fucking slaves. Everything you do is in the best interest of massive corporations and the government's control over you. You're sold on a consumeristic ideology that you need the bigger house, the fastest car, and the flashiest bust down. The Federal Reserve is in fact the biggest scam in human history. And you're told that happiness is only attainable if it's bought. People out here don't have shit, but they're happier than you will ever be. You literally have the option to be here right now, but instead you fell for the trap to sit in a cubicle thinking that one day that will allow you to get here. It's the most genius trap to make the wealthy wealthier and the poorer poorer. As soon as we stop participating in this fucking rat race, watch how the elites shit their pants when the cash flow stops.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of countries out there don't have much as us, not totally happy. I guess it's a catch-22.
Okay, so I want to talk about this again. This video has really caught my eye, not because I think it's real, because of course there's people that are going to say it's absolutely not real. But let me tell you, from my experience, this is exactly what they do. That's why I want to share it. You can make your mind up whether or not you think it's real, but this is exactly what they do. Exactly. So somebody has seen something. This is what blew my mind about this old video. And I'm telling you now, the guy in the fedora that you heard me talk about that transformed into me, he transformed into a dog, into a cat, and then to a black panther on the floor, all fours, then transformed back into the guy with the fedora that looked like me with the trench coat, then materialized into the wall, and his nostrils flared up like a demon. And he did the exact same thing that this guy is doing. You know, 9 times out of 10, this is going to be an effect. There's going to be somebody doing it. But guys, I'm telling you, this is exactly what's taking place around us. This is exactly what they do. So whoever did this, great job. Great job. If it's real, great job with that as well. Leave your comments.
I don't know. It looked like it had sharp teeth when it was glitching out.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم 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 إيه يا حبيبي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم 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 يا حبيبي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. تلفون زفت ولا كان تصويره. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله بسم الله بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وهي بتصرخ بس خايف الناس تلتم علي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من كل شيطان وهامة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يما ويابا بكل حياتي ودنيتي يا حبيبي.
Hey y'all, we're trying to make chicken. We bought this at Costco in Nashville yesterday. What the heck? Have you ever? Are we getting fake meat already? Because everything about my packaging said it was organic, USDA approved, but check it out.
I could be wrong, but I was under the impression that ice cream would melt after sitting out all night. Now it looks like somebody shit in my sink that had really bad diarrhea from Taco Bell or maybe White Castle.
Why my sausage is screaming? What are you doing?
TikTok, I really need your help with this one. I was cooking some spinach and one of the leaves just started inflating, and I'm not sure if that's supposed to happen. It kind of looks like plastic. Can somebody tell me what that is?
But I don't know if I'm tripping out or is this a fucking rat. Is this a rat or is it a dick? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I thought ice cream used to melt too. It absolutely looked like somebody took a dump in his sink. And what's with all his muscle memory with the meat and the inflated spinach? The spinach looked like it was breathing.
Could the manipulation of reality be a mere frequency away? Picture this. A world where Thor's command over lightning isn't fantastical, but a result of a specific wavelength resonating with the electromagnetic field. Or where the Flash's ability to phase through walls isn't just comic book lore, but a sophisticated manipulation of vibrations at an atomic level. Or even the reality-bending powers of Dr. Strange, creating portals and wormholes at will. Sounds like science fiction? Perhaps. But it just might be a hint of science fact. This idea hinges on the very nature of our universe. Everything vibrates at its own unique frequency, and the world around us is filled with positively and negatively charged plasma ions, courtesy of our sun. This giant gas ball of plasma energy radiates these charged particles that get absorbed by the Earth's atmosphere, creating a field that surrounds us. These plasma particles are highly conductive, and they interact with the electromagnetic field, influencing environmental conditions. They're electrically neutral, balanced in nature, and exhibit collective behavior in waves and instabilities. They're also everywhere, filling the space around us and acting as a medium for the transfer of energy. Consider the simple act of speaking. The vibrations from your vocal cords travel through this field of charged particles, reaching an eardrum from a distance, and transferring those vibrations into the ear canal, where they're interpreted into a message. Even our thoughts produce subtle, low-frequency vibrations. Given this understanding, could it be possible to manipulate these frequencies? Could we, with the right technology, resonate with any frequency and gain control over it, using the plasma ions in the air as a conduit to access a specific wavelength? Could we bend or manipulate reality by attracting and repelling certain aspects of the electromagnetic field? These concepts seem far-fetched, akin to the stories of superheroes and villains that we've grown up with. But with advances in quantum physics and string theory, the line between science fiction and science fact becomes increasingly blurred. We find ourselves in a world where the manipulation of reality might just be a matter of finding the right frequency. Everything in our reality boils down to energy vibrating at a specific frequency. The sun emits charged particles that fill the space around us, creating a field of plasma ions. These ions interact with the electromagnetic field and can potentially be manipulated with the right technology. So while the prospect of controlling lightning or phasing through walls remains in the realm of speculation, it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility. After all, reality might just be a frequency away.
I'm sorry, but what the hell is going on in the UK now? Oh my days. It's just absolutely brilliant. What is going on? Oh, of course, I'm sure you're all very aware that Labour, Keir Starmer, won the election last week and is now in Parliament and is already making some drastic changes. So, quite a bit's been going on in the prisons in the UK recently, which I'm sure you've seen. Of course, you had the Lady of Wandsworth in her little video, which was, yeah, interesting. Now, there's another one which emerged only this morning, apparently. But, according to Keir Starmer, the UK prisons are just too full. Apparently, there's literally like 700 spaces available in prisons across the whole country. Of course, how are they going to tackle this? By releasing people who didn't really do that bad things? No. By specifically looking at each individual person, analysing their case? No. You're going to release 40,000 inmates from prison. 40,000? Oh my days. Somebody who is serving a 4-year sentence and has already completed 12 months of it is most likely going to be released. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. Please hit that follow button and I'll keep you updated.
40,000 criminals here in the streets is a lot in any country. That's insane. Shout out to Texas. Our prayers are with you. Stay strong. Stay safe.
I don't think you understand how crazy this is. Yes, we're going to talk about it. Sure, it was funny for a second. This is just getting weird now. She's one of the most popular people in the world right now for saying 2 words. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, just ask in the comments. But before she made social media and before she made all of her merch and everything, she laid low for a little bit, and then she came out with a team of lawyers and managers. And just a few days ago, she released her Instagram, which has over 1 million followers and over 100 million views. And all of her posts are of someone recording her, of her going to concerts, selling merch, being interviewed. And one of the only questions she answered was if she was an industry plant.
I'm not an industry plant. It was not planned. Every bit of it was just there right in the moment because I had to ask what that meant. So that's false.
I mean, no one was thinking that at first, but now you have never seen a video be pushed out like that in your whole entire life. This is probably one of the quickest rises to fame that we have ever seen. Now she is reportedly going to LA/New York to take on her influencer lifestyle and make reality TV shows and join podcasts and the whole 9 yards. Keep in mind, this is all over 2 words.
And that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed tonight's rabbit hole. If you haven't already, please take a second
just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell,
just to make sure the algorithm knows what's up. So what we gonna do, y'all? That's right. Run these numbers up. Thanks again. Until next time.